The massive Imperial starship hung in space like a steel mountain, its dark metal surface reflecting the distant light of Earth's sun. On its bridge, Commander Marcus stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the blue planet through the main viewport. His thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among his kind. "Another primitive world for the Empire," he said to no one in particular. The bridge crew continued their work, used to their commander's habit of talking to himself. "Scan complete, sir," reported his sensor officer. "Their technology level is at least 2 centuries behind ours. They haven't even colonized their entire solar system yet." Marcus nodded, his gray skin wrinkling around his neck. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, and this one would be no different. These humans, as they called themselves, still used chemical rockets and basic ion engines. Their weapons were crude, their defenses minimal. It would be a simple matter to add Earth to the Empire's ever-growing list of conquered worlds. The first warning came through their communications array 3 Earth days later. The message was simple, transmitted in clear language that the Empire's universal translators had no trouble decoding. "This is the Earth United Defense Council. You are approaching restricted space. We have observed your fleet's movement and warn you. Turn back now, or face the consequences. This is your only warning." The bridge crew laughed. Even the usually stern Commander Marcus allowed himself a small chuckle. These humans didn't know their place in the galaxy. Their weapons were practically toys compared to Imperial technology. Their ships were slow, their sensors basic, and their defenses laughable. "Send them our standard response," Marcus ordered. The communications officer transmitted the Empire's traditional demand for surrender, a message that had brought countless civilizations to their knees. The humans' reply came within an hour. "We warned you." Marcus was still smiling when the first attack came. A small group of human ships appeared near Mars, seemingly out of nowhere. The Imperial sensors had missed them completely, impossible, given the Empire's advanced technology. The human vessels were small, quick, and appeared to be using some kind of stealth technology that shouldn't have been possible at their development level. "Launch fighters," Marcus ordered, more annoyed than concerned. "Swat these insects away." The Imperial fighters streamed out of the carrier ships, their energy weapons charging. But the human ships didn't behave like any enemy the Empire had faced before. Instead of forming up into standard combat formations, they scattered in seemingly random patterns. The Imperial fighters targeting computers struggled to lock onto the erratically moving vessels. Then the humans did something that made Marcus's jaw drop. Their ships started using Mars' gravity to slingshot themselves at impossible angles, achieving speeds that their primitive engines shouldn't have been capable of. 3 Imperial fighters were destroyed before they could even react. "Impossible," Marcus whispered, watching the tactical display. The humans were using the most basic laws of physics to outmaneuver ships that were centuries more advanced. They weren't fighting according to any known military doctrine. Their movements seemed random, chaotic, yet somehow coordinated. The battle near Mars lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the humans had destroyed 12 Imperial fighters, while losing only 2 of their own ships. They'd retreated before Marcus could bring his larger vessels into range, disappearing as mysteriously as they had appeared. In his private quarters that evening, Marcus recorded his report to the Imperial High Command. "The humans," he said carefully, "are not what we expected. Their technology is indeed primitive, but they use it in ways we've never seen. They appear to lack any proper military structure or doctrine, making their movements unpredictable. Standard combat algorithms are ineffective against their chaotic strategies." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I recommend we proceed with caution. These humans, they fight differently. They seem to take pride in being unpredictable, in finding ways to turn their technological disadvantages into tactical advantages." Looking out his viewport at the distant Earth, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in his entire military career: doubt. The Empire had always relied on superior technology and strict military doctrine to achieve victory. But these humans didn't play by those rules. They had turned their primitive understanding of physics into a weapon, used their limited technology in ways the Empire had never considered. Perhaps, he muttered to himself, we should have heeded their warning after all. 3 days after the Mars incident, the Empire launched its first major attack. 100 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon, their weapons charged and ready. Commander Marcus watched from his flagship as the massive fleet moved into attack formation. The humans have had enough time to reconsider their position, he announced to his bridge crew. Begin the assault. Standard pattern. But Earth was ready. As the Imperial fleet approached, they discovered that humans had turned their moon into a fortress. Hidden bunkers opened across the lunar surface, revealing rows of what looked like primitive missile launchers. The Empire's sensors barely registered them as weapons. Continue the advance, Marcus ordered. Their primitive missiles can't penetrate our shields. He was wrong. The missiles didn't try to hit the Imperial ships directly. Instead, they exploded in space, creating clouds of small metal pieces moving at incredible speeds. The Empire's energy shields, designed to stop energy weapons and large projectiles, couldn't handle thousands of tiny fragments moving faster than bullets. Ship after ship reported hull breaches. Impossible, Marcus shouted as damage reports flooded in. They're using simple kinetic weapons. How are they breaching our defenses? On Earth's hidden command center, Captain James of the Earth Defense Force allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes the old ways work best, he said, watching the Imperial fleet's confusion. Launch the next phase. Small ships burst from hidden bases on the moon's dark side. They looked like normal Earth vessels, but they had a surprise inside. As they approached the Imperial fleet, they released clouds of what appeared to be space debris. The Empire's ships automatically adjusted their shields to deflect the debris. That was exactly what the humans wanted. Hidden inside the debris were thousands of tiny robots, each no bigger than a coffee cup. As the Imperial ship's shields changed frequency to handle the debris, the robots slipped through. They attached themselves to the ship's hulls and began cutting their way inside. Sir, Marcus's security officer shouted, we have intruders, small machines. They're everywhere. The robots weren't advanced by Imperial standards. They were simple machines programmed to do one thing: cause chaos. They cut power lines, disrupted computer systems, and opened airlocks. Some Imperial ships lost power completely. Others began firing at random, their weapons controlled by hacked systems. Captain James watched the battle from his command center. The Empire thinks advanced technology always wins, he said to his officers. They forgot that sometimes simple solutions work better. Those robots are powered by ordinary batteries and programmed with basic instructions. No fancy AI, no advanced computers. Nothing their systems know how to fight. The Empire's fleet fell into chaos. Their strict battle formations broke apart as ships tried to deal with the internal threats. Some captains ordered their crews to wear spacesuits inside their own ships, afraid of sudden decompressions caused by the human robots. Commander Marcus stared in disbelief at his tactical display. Half his fleet was either disabled or fighting itself. The humans hadn't even used their main weapons yet. His mighty Imperial ships, each one capable of destroying an entire city, were being defeated by machines that humans had probably built in their garages. Full retreat, he ordered, his voice shaking. Get us out of here before. He never finished the sentence. The humans launched their final attack. Hundreds of small ships appeared from behind Earth's satellite network. They moved in patterns that made no sense, ignoring every rule of space combat. Imperial gunners couldn't track them. The targeting computers, designed to predict enemy movement based on standard combat doctrines, were useless against pilots who flew like they were in a street race instead of a space battle. Send a message to High Command, Marcus said quietly as he watched another Imperial ship go dark. The humans, they don't fight like a civilization at their technology level should. They use simple tools in ways we never imagined. They turn our own strength against us. And most importantly, he paused, watching a human ship perform a maneuver that should have torn it apart. They're not afraid of us. As the remains of the Imperial fleet retreated, Captain James received reports from around the solar system. The battle was won, but he knew this was just the beginning. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Begin Phase 2. If the Empire thought we were unpredictable before, wait until they see what we do next." In deep space, as his fleet limped away from Earth, Commander Marcus realized a terrible truth. The Empire hadn't just underestimated humanity's weapons, they had underestimated humanity's spirit, and that might prove to be their biggest mistake of all. The Imperial High Command's meeting room was silent as Commander Marcus finished his report. The massive holographic display showed the devastating losses from the Earth battle. Admiral Stone, leader of the Empire's elite fleet, stood up from his chair, his face dark with anger. "This is unacceptable," Admiral Stone growled. "These primitives are using tricks and cheap tactics. It's time to show them real Imperial power." He turned to the other admirals. "I will lead the elite fleet personally. We will crush these humans with overwhelming force." Commander Marcus tried to speak up. "Sir, I don't think that's wise. The humans, they don't fight like." "Silence." Admiral Stone cut him off. "You failed because you were too cautious. I won't make the same mistake." But while the Empire planned their next attack, humans were busy with their own preparations. Inside a hidden facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Ann walked through rows of captured Imperial technology. Her team had been working day and night, taking apart every piece of equipment they could salvage from the battle. "Look at this," she said, pointing to an Imperial shield generator. "They built it to be perfect, but that's their weakness. It can only work one way, their way. But we're making it work our way." The generator had been modified with Earth technology, a mix of advanced alien parts and simple human engineering that no Imperial engineer would have ever considered. The humans had discovered something incredible. Imperial technology was advanced but inflexible. It was like a perfect machine that could only do one thing. But humans were adding their own modifications, making the technology do things its creators never imagined. Admiral Stone's elite fleet arrived 3 days later. 500 of the Empire's best ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, forming a perfect battle formation. The Admiral stood on his bridge, confident in his overwhelming firepower. "Send the demand for surrender," he ordered. "Show them what they're facing." The response came quickly, a single video message from Earth. The Admiral opened it, expecting to see humans begging for mercy. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. On the screen, a human engineer held up an Imperial energy rifle. But it wasn't normal anymore. They had modified it, attached crude human parts to it. "Thanks for the technology," the engineer said with a grin. "We made some improvements." Before Admiral Stone could respond, radar operators started shouting. Human ships were appearing everywhere, but they were different now. They had Imperial engines attached to Earth ship designs. They moved with impossible speed, combining human maneuverability with Imperial power. "Impossible," Stone whispered. "They couldn't have learned our technology so quickly." But they had. Humans hadn't just studied the Imperial technology. They had reinvented it. They took the Empire's perfect but rigid designs and made them imperfect but flexible. They added backup systems, emergency controls, and manual overrides that Imperial engineers would have considered primitive and unnecessary. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Empire had ever experienced. Human ships, powered by hybrid engines, danced between Imperial formations. Their weapons were a mix of Earth and Imperial technology, firing in ways that Imperial shields weren't designed to stop. "They're not following any known combat pattern," an Imperial officer shouted. "The battle computers can't predict their movements." Admiral Stone watched in horror as his perfect formation fell apart. The humans weren't fighting with just technology. They were fighting with creativity. Every ship seemed to have its own strategy, its own modifications, its own surprises. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Ann monitored the battle through captured Imperial communications. "See that?" she said to her team, pointing at the data. "They expect everything to work perfectly. They don't know how to handle things that work differently." The elite fleet's defeat was total. Admiral Stone's perfect ships, with their perfect weapons and perfect tactics, couldn't handle the chaos of human warfare. The humans had turned the Empire's greatest strength, its advanced technology, into a weakness. As the remaining Imperial ships retreated, Commander Marcus watched the battle recordings in his quarters. He understood now what made humans so dangerous. They didn't just adapt to new technology. They changed it, improved it, made it their own. The Empire had given them tools, expecting them to be overwhelmed. Instead, the humans had taken those tools and turned them into weapons the Empire never imagined possible. "We didn't just underestimate their strength," Marcus wrote in his personal log. "We underestimated their ability to learn, to change, to improve. And now," he paused, looking at the battle data, "now they're teaching us what our own technology can really do." The Imperial High Command's emergency meeting was interrupted by urgent news. Humans had launched their first major offensive, not against the Empire's fleets, but against their supply lines. Captain James had led a strike force deep into Imperial territory, using ships that looked like common cargo vessels, but packed hidden weapons. "They're attacking our fuel stations," a general reported, his voice shaking. "These humans, they studied our supply routes and found our weak points. They're not trying to be our fleets. They're starving them." Commander Marcus, now serving as an advisor to High Command, nodded slowly. "The humans understand something we forgot," he said. "Wars aren't won by the side with the best weapons. They're won by the side that can keep fighting longest." The human strike force moved like ghosts through Imperial space. Their ships used captured Imperial identification codes, but with a twist. Dr. Ann's team had found a way to make the codes change constantly, staying just ahead of Imperial security. The Empire builds perfect walls, Dr. Ann had explained to Captain James before the mission. But they never expect anyone to dig under them. The Empire's response was predictable. They sent massive battle fleets to protect their supply lines. But that was exactly what the humans wanted. While Imperial ships guarded fuel stations and supply routes, the main human fleet struck at poorly defended Imperial worlds. They didn't attack the planets. Instead, they appeared in orbit broadcasting a simple message. "We are not your enemy. The Empire told you we're savages. Look at our ships. We took their technology and improved it. We can teach you to do the same." Rebellion spread through the Empire's outer worlds. People who had lived under Imperial control for generations saw something new in the humans, not just the power to fight the Empire, but the knowledge to make things better. Back on Earth, Dr. Ann made another breakthrough. She stood in front of the United Defense Council, holding what looked like a small metal box. "The Empire's faster-than-light drives are amazing," she said, "but they're also limited. They can only jump to calculated points in space. We found a way to make them more flexible." She activated the device. The air shimmered, and suddenly she was standing on the other side of the room. "Short-range teleportation," she explained to the stunned council members. "The Empire never tried this because it doesn't fit their perfect system. But we made it work." The new technology changed everything. Human ships could now make short jumps during battle, appearing and disappearing faster than Imperial gunners could track. The Empire's perfect formations were useless against an enemy that could vanish and reappear anywhere. Commander Marcus watched recordings of the battles, studying how human ships use the new technology. "They don't use it the way we would," he told High Command. "We would make rules and patterns. They use it randomly, creatively. Every captain makes their own decisions. The Empire tried to adapt, but their military structure worked against them. Every change needed approval from High Command. Every new tactic had to be reviewed and standardized. By the time they developed countermeasures, the humans had already changed their strategy. During one battle, a human ship appeared inside an Imperial destroyer's shield envelope. Instead of attacking, they broadcast a message to the crew. Your shields are perfect at stopping big things, but can they stop 1,000 small things? Can they stop a single person with a good idea? The Empire taught you that perfect is strong. We're teaching you that adaptable is stronger. The Imperial crew, watching human ships dance through space in ways they'd never imagined possible, began to question everything they'd been taught. Captain James, coordinating the attacks from his flagship, received reports of Imperial crews surrendering without a fight. They're starting to understand, he told his officers. The Empire's greatest weapon was convincing everyone that their way was the only way. We're showing them something different. In his private quarters, Commander Marcus wrote in his log, "The humans aren't just winning battles, they're winning minds. They take our technology and show us uses we never imagined. They take our perfect systems and make them better by making them imperfect. They're not just defeating the Empire, they're changing it." The Empire had started this war thinking they would teach humans their place in the galaxy. Instead, humans were teaching the galaxy that there was more than one way to reach the stars. The Empire's greatest scientists gathered in a secure facility on their capital world. On screens around them played videos of human ships performing impossible maneuvers, Imperial technology being used in ways they'd never imagined, and battles that defied all military logic. "We've been looking at this wrong," said the head scientist, pointing to the displays. "We thought humans were primitive because their technology was simple. But look at this." He played a video of a human ship escaping 6 Imperial destroyers by flying through an asteroid field, making moves that should have torn the ship apart. "Their strength isn't their technology," he continued. "It's their way of thinking. They don't see rules. They see possibilities." Meanwhile, deep in Imperial space, Captain James led Earth's 3rd Fleet on their boldest mission yet. Their ships, now a strange mix of human and Imperial technology, approached a major Imperial shipyard. But instead of attacking, they'd broadcast a message to the shipyard's workers. "We bring you a gift," the message said. The human ships launched thousands of small packages toward the shipyard. Inside each package was a simple computer tablet containing technical drawings and instructions, human modifications that could improve Imperial technology. "Your leaders tell you that perfection cannot be improved," the message continued. "We're showing you that there's always room for something new, something different." The Empire's response was predictable. They sent warships to destroy the shipyard before the workers could be corrupted by human ideas. But when the Imperial fleet arrived, they found their own workers refusing to evacuate. The shipyard's engineers were already implementing human modifications, making improvements that the Empire had always said were impossible. Back on Earth, Dr. Ann made another breakthrough. She stood in her lab, surrounded by captured Imperial equipment. "Look at their AI systems," she said to her team. "They're incredibly advanced, but they're built to think like the Empire, in straight lines, following strict rules. So we created this." She activated a new system that combined human unpredictability with Imperial processing power. On the screen, battle simulations showed human-modified AI adapting and changing strategies mid-fight, something Imperial systems could never do. "They built their computers to be perfect," Dr. N explained. "We taught them to be creative." The Empire's problems grew worse. More outer worlds were openly supporting humans, attracted by their promise of technological freedom. Imperial crews began questioning orders, wondering why they couldn't modify their ships like the humans did. Commander Marcus, watching all this from his new position in high command, understood the true disaster unfolding. "We're not just losing a war," he told the other commanders. "We're losing our way of life. The humans aren't destroying the Empire. They're changing it from within." During one battle, a human ship was surrounded by 3 Imperial cruisers. Instead of fighting or surrendering, The human captain invited the Imperial commanders to board his vessel. Two of them accepted, curious about their enemy. "Look at this," the human captain said, showing them their engine room. Imperial technology hummed alongside human modifications, working together in ways the Empire had always said were impossible. "Your empire taught you that there's only one right way to do things. We're showing you there are infinite ways." The story spread through the Imperial fleet. More crews began experimenting with their ships, making small modifications like the humans did. Imperial officers who had once demanded perfect compliance now found themselves facing a choice: adapt or fall behind. In her mountain laboratory, Dr. Anne received an unexpected message. Imperial scientists, breaking centuries of tradition, were asking to collaborate with human engineers. "They're finally understanding," she told Captain James over a secure channel. The Empire's greatest weakness wasn't their technology. It was their inability to imagine using it differently. The Empire had prided itself on bringing order to the galaxy, on making everything work according to their perfect system. But humans had introduced something the Empire never expected: the power of creative chaos, of trying new things, of breaking rules to make something better. Commander Marcus, in what would become a famous speech to High Command, summed it up perfectly. "We thought we were teaching the galaxy the right way to do everything. These humans taught us that there is no single right way. And that lesson, more than any weapon, is what's defeating us." The war had become more than a fight between armies. It had become a battle between two ways of thinking: the Empire's insistence on perfection versus humanity's embrace of endless possibility. The Imperial Palace shook as protesters filled the streets of the capital world. Citizens who had lived under the Empire's strict rules for generations were demanding change. They held up signs with a phrase that terrified Imperial leaders: "Let us think like humans." Inside the palace, the Emperor himself called an emergency meeting. For the first time in Imperial history, the ruler of 1,000 worlds looked worried. The massive holographic displays showed dozens of Imperial fleets in retreat, worlds in rebellion, and something even more disturbing: Imperial citizens modifying their own technology with human ideas. "The humans have done something worse than defeat our fleets," the Emperor said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "They've made our people question our ways." Meanwhile, in deep space, the largest battle of the war was unfolding. The Empire had gathered its remaining loyal fleets, over 2,000 ships, for one final push to crush the human forces. Admiral Stone led the massive armada, determined to prove that Imperial power could still triumph. But humans had prepared a surprise. As the Imperial fleet approached Earth's solar system, Captain James revealed humanity's newest creation: Dr. Anne. He called over the command channel. "Show them what impossible really means." Dr. Anne, aboard her research ship, activated a device that combined Imperial faster-than-light technology with human creativity. Suddenly, hundreds of small wormholes opened throughout the battle space. Human ships zipped through them, appearing and disappearing faster than Imperial gunners could track. "Impossible," Admiral Stone shouted as his perfect formation fell into chaos. "They've taken our jump drives and turned them into something new." Commander Marcus finished for him. He was watching the battle from High Command, and for the first time, he smiled. That's what humans do. They take things and make them into something new. The battle became a demonstration of everything humans had learned. Ships equipped with hybrid technology danced through space. Modified Imperial weapons fired in ways their creators never imagined. Each human captain fought differently, using strategies that Imperial battle computers couldn't predict. But the real shock came when a third of the Imperial fleet suddenly turned their weapons against their own side. The crews had secretly modified their ships with human innovations, tired of fighting for the Empire's rigid ways. Admiral Stone watched in horror as his fleet tore itself apart. "This is why the Empire was wrong about humans," he said quietly to his bridge crew. "We saw their creativity as primitive chaos, but their chaos has patterns we never understood. Back on Earth, Dr. Ann worked with her team to coordinate the battle. The screens in her command center showed Imperial ships struggling against human tactics. "See how they keep trying to form perfect formations," she said to her staff. "They can't accept that perfect isn't always best." The battle reached its climax when Captain James led a daring attack on Admiral Stone's flagship. Instead of destroying it, the humans used their short-range teleporters to board the ship. They moved through the corridors, not as invaders, but as teachers. "Look at how we modified your systems," they told the Imperial crew. "We can show you how to do it too. The Empire tells you there's only one way. We're showing you there are endless ways." One by one, Imperial ships began powering down their weapons. Crews that had served the Empire loyally for years realized that humans weren't offering defeat. They were offering freedom. Freedom to think differently, to try new things, to find better ways. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor received the news of his fleet's defeat, but it wasn't just a military loss. His people had seen something they couldn't unsee: the power of human creativity, the strength of adaptation, the freedom to think differently. Commander Marcus, watching it all unfold, wrote what would become famous words: "The Empire spent centuries perfecting our civilization. Humans spent centuries learning to be imperfect. And in the end, their imperfection was stronger than our perfection." The war wasn't ending with the destruction of the Empire. It was ending with its transformation. Humans had proven that the greatest power in the galaxy wasn't perfect technology or unbeatable weapons. It was the ability to think differently, to adapt, to change. As Imperial ships lined up to surrender, Captain James sent a final message: "We warned you to run. Instead, you stayed and learned." Maybe that was better for everyone. The great hall of the Imperial Palace had never seen a gathering quite like this. The Emperor sat on his throne, but he wasn't alone at the height of the chamber. Captain James and Dr. Ann stood beside him as equals, while Commander Marcus watched from nearby, a small smile on his face. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the hall, many wearing modified Imperial uniforms that showed both their heritage and their new freedom. "The war is over," the Emperor announced, his voice carrying centuries of tradition. "And now, something new: humility. But this is not a surrender in the traditional sense. This is a transformation." Dr. Ann stepped forward, holding up a simple tablet computer. On its screen, technical drawings showed Imperial and human technology working together in new ways. "We're offering every world in the galaxy the same thing," she said. "Not our control, but our knowledge. Not our rule, but our creativity." The changes were already spreading faster than anyone could control. Throughout the Empire, people were modifying their technology with human innovations. Ships that once could only travel in straight lines now danced through space. Cities that had been built for perfect order now buzzed with creative chaos. Commander Marcus addressed the gathered representatives. "I fought against humans at the start of this war," he said. "I thought their primitive ways made them weak. Now I understand. Their greatest strength was never their weapons. It was their ability to imagine new possibilities." In Earth's orbit, Captain James led a tour of a new kind of space station. It was a hybrid of Imperial and human engineering, where scientists from both civilizations worked together. Imperial engineers who had once refused to consider any deviation from their perfect designs now worked alongside human inventors who saw rules as mere suggestions. "Look at this," one Imperial scientist said excitedly, showing off a modified faster-than-light drive. "We always thought it had to be precise, perfect. The humans showed us how to make it flexible, adaptable. Now it can do things we never imagined." The Emperor had agreed to a new system of governance. The rigid Imperial High Command was replaced by a council that included representatives from Earth and other worlds. Their first act was to establish the Galactic Exchange Program, allowing people from all worlds to share ideas and innovations freely. Dr. Ann's laboratory in the Rocky Mountains became the first Galactic Innovation Center. The Empire built amazing technology, she explained to visitors from across the galaxy, but they were afraid to experiment, to make mistakes. We're teaching them that sometimes the best discoveries come from getting things wrong. In space, the changes were even more dramatic. The once perfect formations of Imperial fleets were replaced by ships that moved with individual style and creativity. Former Imperial officers trained alongside human pilots, learning to think differently, to adapt, to improvise. Captain James received a special assignment, leading the first joint human-Imperial exploration mission. His crew included former enemies who now worked together, combining Imperial precision with human creativity. "We're not just exploring space," he told them. "We're exploring new ways of thinking." Commander Marcus, who had witnessed the entire transformation, wrote the final entry in his war diary. "We thought we were fighting humans. Instead, they fought our assumptions. We thought we were defending our way of life. Instead, they showed us a better way. The empire didn't fall, it grew." The emperor's final decree surprised everyone. He transformed the imperial palace into the Galactic Innovation Academy, where people from all worlds could come to learn, experiment, and create. The perfect imperial gardens were allowed to grow wild in places, creating a blend of order and chaos that symbolized the new way. "Remember when we warned you to run?" Dr. N asked a group of imperial scientists. They laughed. The phrase had become a popular saying throughout the galaxy, but its meaning had changed. Now it meant, run toward new ideas, run toward change, run toward possibility. As the sun set on the capital world, ships of all designs filled the sky. Some followed the old imperial patterns, some moved with human unpredictability, but most combined both styles in new ways. Each one represented not the end of empire, but the beginning of something greater, a civilization that had learned to embrace both perfection and chaos, tradition and innovation, certainty and possibility. The war that began with a warning had ended with a gift, the understanding that the greatest power in the universe wasn't perfect technology or unbeatable weapons, but the simple human ability to imagine something new and make it real.